Berengar's career is one of a man used to confrontation. He had an intense rivalry with Guy of Spoleto, and then saw off the challenge of Louis the Blind, initially by peace, and then when Louis came to challenge his rule in Italy, Berengar took the brutal step of having Louis blinded, and so he became known as Louis the Blind. Louis had been invited twice to invade Italy due to Berengar's increasingly unpopular rule. Berengar had been born about 845 and was the grandson of Louis the Pious on his mother's side, and so that made him the great-grandson of Charlemagne. Such a prestigious family background should have been highly advantageous for Berengar. Berengar's first taste of power came when he succeeded his older brother as Margrave of Friuli, a territory in Italy. That came about when he was aged about 19. In 875, Berengar was used by Louis the German in his desperate attempts to stop Charles the Bald from becoming Holy Roman Emperor. That was unsuccessful, as Charles saw off 3 attempts by Louis to thwart him, but it does show Berengar's growing importance in the empire. In the mid-880s, Berengar's rivalry with Guy of Spoleto began, as Charles the Fat sent him to take Spoleto off Guy. After initial success for Berengar, he and his army were driven back by a plague. In 887, Berengar managed to lose the favour of Charles the Fat after he had got himself entangled in a dispute with a bishop. Berengar went back to the emperor in grovelling fashion and managed to get himself back in the good books of Charles. At this point, Berengar must have been fully aware of the political situation in the empire, as Charles was deprived of power that year, and so, by placing himself close at hand, he had put himself in a position to extend his power, and it bore fruit when he became King of Italy that year. However, not long after his succession to power, Berengar's nemesis, Guy of Spoleto, was back on the scene and challenging Berengar's rule. They came to blows near Brescia, where the result was inconclusive and a peace treaty was agreed. This only lasted a matter of months, however. Berengar then had to see off Arnulf of Carinthia, which he did so, but Arnulf effectively became Berengar's overlord. Berengar's authority was then thoroughly undermined by Guy, who defeated him at Trebia and had himself declared King of Italy. This was shortly after the initial peace treaty had expired. After a brief pause in hostilities, 893 and 894 saw Berengar unite with Arnulf in an attempt to deprive Guy of power. They initially defeated Guy and gained territory before a combination of Guy fighting back and Berengar and Arnulf having a major disagreement saw Berengar lose Friuli and temporarily driven from Italy. Guy, however, died that year, and the rivalry with Berengar passed on from him to his son Lambert. Berengar challenged Lambert's rule in Italy, but was defeated in battle. Lambert, however, was murdered at the age of just 18, and this left Berengar's path back to power clear. In 899, though, his rule suffered a severe blow when he was routed by the invading Magyars. This prompted the nobility to seriously question Berengar, and it was here that Louis, King of Provence, was invited to invade Italy and usurp Berengar. The next few years were blighted by Louis and Berengar's feuding, and the Magyars repeated attacks. Berengar saw off the threat of Louis by capturing him and blinding him, as I already mentioned. Magyar invasions were not the only threat to the empire at this time. Saracen invasions had been a thorn in the side of the rulers of Italy before, and in 915, the high point of Berengar's political career came to fruition with the defeat of an invading Muslim force at Garigliano. This prompted the Pope to crown Berengar Holy Roman Emperor. His reign as emperor was completely overshadowed by continued problems, however. The Magyars continued to sack and loot, and in 923, Berengar faced another challenge to his status as emperor when he was faced off in battle by the King of Burgundy and his allies. The battle proved to be a total disaster for Berengar, who was roundly defeated and effectively saw him removed from power. Not long after that, he was murdered. He was a man of considerable family pedigree, but Berengar was clearly not the shrewdest or most able of rulers. Frequently defeated in battle, and a man who regularly lost territory he held, he also had a nasty streak as shown by his treatment of Louis the Blind. His standout achievement was clearly the events of 915, but unfortunately for Berengar and those he ruled over, he failed to put it to much use, and his lack of military prowess ensured that his time as emperor was blighted by further Magyar raids and civil war.